Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome back to another Wednesday recording here at Barstool Sports with your favorite host, Michael. And without further ado, let's just get into today's recording. So, everyone on Twitter has overreacted to this map put out by the Sports, Housing, and Recreational Tourism Stats Division. And the more you look at it, the more you realize the map is nothing but a troll. I mean, they had the Buffalo Bills as the best sports team in New York. They had Ohio State as the best sports team in Michigan. They had the Chargers as the best sports team in California. You could tell that was nothing but a troll. And then when you look at the bottom right corner, you see the Barstool Sports logo. You're like, yes. Confirms my suspicions that this may just be one big trick. But looking at that map, it really made me think, who is the premier sports entity in the United States when it comes to different states? Like, when you think of, say, Alabama, who's the first sports entity you think of? Oh, Alabama Crimson Tide football. When you think of North Dakota, if you ever think about North Dakota, who is the first sports team you think of? Oh, North Dakota State football. So I was like, I don't want to go with every single state. I just want to focus on states that have professional sports teams. And I want to look and see who is the premier sports team of that state. So without further ado, let's get into it. In Arizona, you have the Arizona Cardinals. They're the most recent playoff team, have the most recent championship appearance. The Diamondbacks weren't a team until 1998. The Phoenix Suns, look at the record the past 5 years. Look at their record since Steve Nash left. The Cardinals also are carrying a lot of hype that neither the Suns nor the Diamondbacks are carrying. When you have Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, they look like they could be a top 10 quarterback head coach combination next year. Then you add DeAndre Hopkins, you still have Larry Fitzgerald, you still have a solid running back core, and then you added in-state legend Eno Benjamin, and then you add Isaiah Simmons to that defense. Like I already said before, and I'll say again, Arizona Cardinals are a dangerous team in the NFC, and don't be surprised if they sneak in to get a wild card spot. Now with California, of course it's the LA Lakers. Look, there's the Lakers' 16 titles that they've won equal 29% of the state's total pro sports titles in the Big Four. That's hockey, baseball, basketball, and football. The Lakers are one of the most valuable sports franchises, valued at $3.7 billion. And just look at the names of greats, legends that's played for the Lakers. You have Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, George Mikan, Kareem, Magic, Kobe, Shaq, LeBron, and AD. That's probably their top 10, top 11. That trumps any top 10 and top 11, any other team in the state of California, or possibly in the rest of the United States. That trumps everybody's list. When you go to Colorado, it's the Denver Broncos, mainly because they're the only ones who's really winning stuff. I mean, it's not the Rockies. The Denver Nuggets, they're good, but tell me the last time they've played in the NBA Finals. The Colorado Avalanche are looking solid. They're looking nice. They look poised to become an ascending NHL team, but right now, as it stands, it's the Denver Broncos. In Florida, it's the Miami Heat. But what about Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay? We don't even know if Tampa Bay is going to win that division. Granted, they might make the playoffs, but not because they're that good, but because the NFL extended the playoff structure to allow another wildcard team. We don't even know what Tampa Bay is. Understand that Tom Brady had a worse passer rating than Drew Brees and Matt Ryan. And he goes into a division not being mobile, surrounded by teams who are known for getting to the quarterback. Look at the Saints and the Panthers' sacks numbers last year. That's 4 games right there. That's a quarter of the season where you can guarantee Tom Brady's getting sacked 5 or more times. 4 games. That's a quarter of the season. He didn't have to deal with that with the Jets. Didn't have to deal with that with the Bills, despite their vaunted defense. Didn't have to deal with that with the Dolphins. But now he moves to the division where he doesn't have the best team. He doesn't have the best coach. He doesn't have the best weapons. He doesn't have the best defense. Doesn't have the best running game. Doesn't have the best offensive line. The only thing he has that works out for him is he has the best destination as far as weather's concerned. He has the best destination for old people retiring. Tampa Bay is nothing but people going to school and old people and young people being raised by their grandparents. Look it up. I'm not joking. Tampa Bay is where people go to retire. And then if you want to think about Miami and Jacksonville, they're not ready yet. They're not there. The Orlando Magic, no. The Tampa Bay Rays, the Miami Marlins, no. The Lightning and the Panthers, no. It's the Heat all the way. They probably have the best franchise player out of all of every single team in Florida. It's Dwayne Wade. He's probably the best athlete to play, if we're not counting LeBron, of course. But Dwayne Wade is probably the best franchise athlete in Florida. Yager's a close second. In Georgia, it's Georgia Bulldogs football. In the last 10 years, they've been the most successful sports team in Georgia. AO Falcons, 28-3. And honestly, the Falcons were the third best team in the division for much of the decade. Atlanta Hawks, what happened when you have 4 All-Stars and got the first seed in the East? Wasn't your time then? And honestly, it's not your time now. The Atlanta Braves can't win a playoff game. They haven't won a playoff series since 2001. And everyone thought this past season would be their year, but of course it wasn't. Atlanta needs to learn how to win playoff games. So until then, it's the Georgia Bulldogs through and through. In Illinois, it's not even close. It's the Chicago Bulls. Yes, I know the Chicago Blackhawks were nice. I think they won 3 championships in 4 years or something like that. But those days are long gone. And look at the impact that Michael Jordan had on the Chicago Bulls franchise. Every year that Chicago fails, people always say it's disappointing. And they never say it's expected. Whenever post-Jordan and the Bulls were struggling to go to the playoffs, oh, this is such a disappointment. Really? What about when D-Rose started getting hurt and that team was on his last wheel struggling to get to the finals? This is such a disappointment. Really? How about now with the team struggling with injuries, not really having a star player, not having the best head coach? This is such a disappointment. Is it? Or is it just expected and Michael Jordan made you think that Chicago was more than mediocrity? And then if you look at the Chicago Bears, look, they can't even figure out a quarterback. Tell me the last top-tier quarterback to play for the Chicago Bears in the last 20 years. Jay Cutler? Rex Grossman? The only one to make a Pro Bowl was Mitch Trubisky, and we all see how talented Mitch Trubisky is. Everyone told the Bears, you have the number 2 pick, draft Deshaun. He may have injury problems. He may not look that great to you, but he's a champion. He's won a lot of games. Mitch Trubisky can't hold a candlelight to Deshaun, so pick Deshaun. And they picked Mitch. And you've seen what's happened as a result. Deshaun Watson has won playoff games. He's gone to the playoffs multiple times. And Mitch Trubisky had his playoff hopes dashed by double doink Parkey. That's the reality of the Chicago Bears. In Indiana, it's the Indianapolis Colts. Peyton Manning gave that team 1 championship, and that's all they needed. All they should ever ask for. The Pacers, 4 straight first-round exits, no NBA titles. Paul George was such a great player, only got them to the conference finals once. I mean, look, the Pacers really haven't been that team since Reggie Miller played there. And Peyton Manning, yes, it was one championship, got to another. You can say he underachieved, but he got that state, he got that franchise a championship. In Louisiana, now, I didn't consult Morgan for this. I probably should have, but whatever. Louisiana, the premier sports team is the New Orleans Saints. I know LSU is big. I know they did good last year, but we don't even know if LSU is going to be the king of the SEC next year. They still don't have the better coach. They lost a whole bunch of weapons from the offense and the defense. So, who's going to be that quarterback? What do we know about the incoming quarterback that's coming in? So there's a lot of questions about LSU. Whereas New Orleans Saints were like, yeah, they're winning the division next year. They're top 3 seed in the NFC next year. We know that for certain. And we've said that about the Saints for the past, 3-4 years? Drew Brees is still amazing, despite him being 40. Mike Thomas is legit. Alvin Kamara is legit. Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore on that defense, they're legit. Sean Payton, like I said, like you'll hear on Friday, top 6 coach. You can give Sean Payton a team full of nobodies, and he will figure out a way to go 8-8. Give Sean Payton the Miami Dolphins of last year. He'll go 8-8 with them. So it's definitely the Saints. And yeah, the Hornets haven't really done anything in New Orleans for me to even consider them for this position. Next, you have in Maryland, you have the Baltimore Ravens. Have you not seen the Washington team play football? Have you not seen the Baltimore Orioles? Look, it's the Baltimore Ravens, and it's not even close. Lamar Jackson, like how Patrick Mahomes got the Chiefs to back up the Brinks truck. Lamar Jackson is next. Granted, he may not get that much money, but Lamar Jackson is definitely getting paid. For sure. He may not get a 10-year contract. He might get 5 or 6 at the most. But Lamar Jackson's going to get paid. Don't worry about the rest of the league. Don't worry. Patrick Mahomes just signed his life away. Patrick Mahomes likes playing in Kansas City. What's wrong with that? Lamar Jackson's going to get paid. And Baltimore Ravens is the premier sports team in Maryland. Now, Massachusetts, come on, let's not kid ourselves. It's the New England Patriots. Come on. The Patriots have 6 rings since 2020. The Celtics have 6 Eastern Conference Finals appearances since 2000. They've had 5 first-round exits. They've missed the playoffs 4 times, and they've only had one ring. The Red Sox, they've gotten 4 rings, which is really impressive, especially in baseball where winning is hard. But you've also missed the playoffs 10 times. And I'm not saying, as the dichotomy of me acknowledging that you've won a lot and you've missed the playoffs despite the fact that winning in baseball is so hard, it's not like I can do anything about that. And it's not like I'm the only one who doesn't think that the New England Patriots is more popular than the Boston Red Sox. Look at their valuation numbers. Look at the rings, look at the revenue, look at the stats, look at the wins. The Patriots have completely run the AFC East and pretty much run the NFL for the past 20 years. In Michigan, come on. It's Michigan Wolverines football. Look, it's bad when Jim Harbaugh is probably the second best coach in your state. I'll say Tom Izzo is first. But when Jim Harbaugh is the second best coach in your state, that's a desperate cry for help. Look, Matt Patricia, he hasn't shown that he can make it work, despite the fact that he has, in my eyes, a top 10, top 12 quarterback in the league. Dwayne Casey, he's overseeing a rebuild, and the Pistons just aren't what they used to be. So that's something that's working against them. The Red Wings, they're definitely going through a rebuild. Same thing with the Tigers. So when you look at it, the Michigan Wolverines are probably the only like big team in Michigan that's regularly seeing success. Now, when you go to Minnesota, it's the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Wild weren't a team until the 2020, and the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Twins are just embarrassing. Nothing more needs to be said. Now, Missouri is the Kansas City Chiefs. When you look at the Royals, when they won their championship a few years ago, you was like, how many more championships could this team win, honestly? When you look at the Chiefs, you're like, no, they could definitely win 3, 4, 5 more championships. That's the thing. Yeah, the Cardinals are solid, but come on, think about it. They don't have the hype that the Chiefs has right now. When you think of Missouri, if you first know that Kansas City is in Missouri and not Kansas, you'll be like, oh no, that's definitely the Chiefs. And the St. Louis Blues, they're honestly my close second as far as sports teams in Missouri. They won the 2019 Stanley Cup Final. They're first in the Central Division this year heading into the playoffs. They look poised to win another one, and who knows what could happen. In Nevada, it's the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Remember 4 or 5 years ago, Nevada was just chilling. The only sports thing that they have to worry about was UNLV, Nevada at times, and Summer League. And Summer League was probably their biggest event in the entire state. Now they have 2 sports teams, and one of those sports teams has Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota as their quarterbacks. Ugh. Now, the Golden Knights made the Stanley Cup in their inaugural season. They didn't win, but they are first in the Pacific Division this year, and they look poised to make another run at the Stanley Cup. So, who knows? Maybe that the Golden Knights get that ever-elusive Stanley Cup that they missed out on a couple years ago. In New Jersey, it's the New York Giants. Look, I know they don't really look that solid now, but compare that to everyone else who plays in New Jersey, and you realize that it's slim pickings. In the past 20 years, the most successful quarterback for the New York Jets has been Mark Sanchez. The New Jersey Devils, they've won 3 playoff series since 2008. And all of those playoff series happened in the 2012 postseason. Like the New York Giants, they got Eli. And Eli gave him 2 rings. And that's a lot more than you can say for the other franchises who make their home in New Jersey. Now with New York, it's the New York Yankees, and it's not even close. The Buffalo Bills or the Nets or the New York Rangers or the New York Islanders or the New York Knicks, they could all win Super Bowls or Stanley Cups or titles for the next 3 years consecutively, and I wouldn't think about this question for longer than 10 seconds. The New York Yankees are the premier baseball franchise in the league, and honestly, they're one of the top franchises in American sports. One of the top sports franchises in the world. Like, the New York Yankees is a brand. They're known. With North Carolina, it's Duke basketball. It's Duke basketball. The job that Coach K has done at Duke is simply remarkable. And whenever someone asks me Duke versus UNC, I always tell them, look at what their players do in the pros. Look at North Carolina's pro prospects and look at Duke. Duke has Zion, Kyrie, they have all these great talents, JJ Redick. Then you look at UNC, you're like, who do you have? Harrison Barnes? Is that your best product? I mean, ever since Michael, tell me the best pro prospect to come out of North Carolina. I'm not saying that they don't have any. I'm just saying when you look at how quickly and how often Duke has pro prospects and they do exceptionally well in the league, and then you look at UNC, you're like with your hand out, like, where's more? You look at the Carolina Panthers, yes, they had a strong peak, but outside of Cam and Jake Delhomme for a few seasons when he was amazing, they haven't really done much, and they're a new team. The Carolina Hurricanes have missed the playoffs 11 of the last 14 years, including a period where they missed the playoffs for 9 straight seasons. And the Hornets, they have a 3-12 playoff record since 2005. So, yeah, the premier sports entity in North Carolina is Duke Blue Devils basketball. In Ohio, it's Ohio State football. The Bengals and the Browns, we don't even know if their quarterbacks are going to work. I mean, we think Joe Burrow is going to work. I think Baker Mayfield is going to work since he has a better coach, but we don't even know. If you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets, they've had one playoff series win in the past 19 seasons. I'm sorry, in the 19 seasons that they've been a team. If you look at Cleveland baseball, 3 series wins, and they've missed the playoffs 13 times since 2001. And the Cavaliers, look at the Cavaliers without LeBron. Over the past, I'll give you 20, 25 years. Just compare records with LeBron and without LeBron. It's terrifying to look at. Oklahoma, it's Oklahoma Sooner football. The Sooners, the past 3 years, they've had 3 college football playoff berths and 3 Heisman finalists and 2 Heisman winners. The Thunder the last 3 years, 3 first-round exits. 3 triple-double seasons by Russell Westbrook, yeah, but still 3 first-round exits. When you look at Oregon, it's not Oregon Duck football. It is the Portland Trail Blazers. Dame, CJ, they have something there. If stars were more willing to go to Portland, then maybe. And Portland wasn't struggling with injuries, then maybe you could say they get past the Golden State Warriors last postseason. But as it stands right now, it's the Portland Trail Blazers. And Oregon, honestly, I don't know if they're going to make it any much closer. In Pennsylvania, the premier sports franchise is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have 6 rings, and honestly, they're probably the most popular in the state. Philadelphia Eagles, yes, they won a championship, but they don't have that franchise success. The 76ers, yeah, they're solid, but we don't even know this rebuild that they have with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is going to give them a title. The Flyers, they've alternated seasons where they've made the playoffs and missed the playoffs since 2012. The Pirates, here are their playoff stats since the 79 World Series. They've won 1 playoff series, and they've missed the playoffs 34 times. 34. And that was a span of 10, then they made it to 3 straight. And in a span of 20 years, and then they made it to 3 straight. And now their current streak is missing the playoffs 4 straight times. And the Philadelphia Phillies, they haven't made the playoffs since 2012. Now in Tennessee, I really thought about this one because Tennessee has a lot of solid average sports franchises, and I think it's the Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, look, the Titans, they made the AFC Championship, and when we look at their chances to make it again, we're like, eh. The Predators, they went to the Stanley Cup a few years ago. We look at the championship winning now, we're like, eh. I feel like with the Grizzlies, they're the only team in Tennessee whose championship window is opening. With the Tennessee Volunteers, I just need them to see them be solid for another year. If you watched or you read my website, I really dragged Tennessee throughout the entirety of the college football season because they just really underperformed. But towards the end of the season, they got really hot. So this upcoming college football season, if they have it, we're going to see whether or not Tennessee is more like that first half or that second half, or if they're a mixture of both. Now, the premier sports team in Texas is the San Antonio Spurs. The Dallas Stars, they've missed the playoffs 8 of the last 12 seasons. The Rockets, the Mavericks, really exciting, really fun teams, but they've only won 1 ring and made to the finals 2 times since 1999. In that span, the Spurs have won 5 rings and has been to the finals 6 times. The Cowboys and the Texans, they have no Super Bowl appearance this century. That one's really not hard for me to think about. The Houston Rangers, no series win since 2011 in the playoffs. And when it comes to the Houston Astros, I don't know. I would have did research into the Houston Astros, but I was too busy banging on trash cans, and I honestly didn't have time for it. When you look at Utah, it's the Utah Jazz. That one's pretty easy. Shouldn't have explained that one. Washington is the Seattle Seahawks, because the Seattle Mariners haven't made the playoffs since 2001. Last year was supposed to be their year. Just started off crazy high, and they did what the Mariners always do and tail off towards the end of the season. When you look at DC, it's the Washington Capitals. Last year, the Nationals didn't win the World Series, but they didn't win the pennant last year. They're probably not going to win it this year. The Wizards, they've underachieved my entire existence. They haven't reached Eastern Conference Finals since 1979. And when you look at the Capitals, they won the 2018 Stanley Cup. They're first in the Metropolitan Division in NHL, as the playoffs are going to start next month. So, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said with the St. Louis Blues, if the Washington Capitals can make another run at the Stanley Cup and potentially win another one. And when you look at Wisconsin, it's the Green Bay Packers. Not just because, they're the only pro sports franchise, but they're one of the top franchises in the NFL. They've always had all-star level quarterbacks. When it was Brett Favre, and the early beginning it was Bart Starr, now it's Aaron Rodgers, and they hope that Jordan Love is that guy. But yeah, it's Green Bay Packers for Wisconsin.